Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Oboe Speak with Dr. David Cyzak. Today we have a 2-for-1. I'm going to sharpen two of my students' knives. They said, Dr. Cyzak, please help me. And so I'm going to go over these knives. I was teaching them how to do this, but sometimes it takes not just a great deal of time, but it can take very specific application of skill to do it in a more expedited way. But you only get that skill with practice. So as they're continuing to practice those skills, I'm going to go in and make sure that I can get these knives to the point that they want a little bit more expeditiously, so they don't have to spend 2 or 3 hours. I can do it in 20 or 40 minutes. So the first knife we're going to start with is this single beveled knife. And I'm going to grab my super handy dandy whiteboard so I can draw on it and show you cool stuff. Let me see. Yep, I'm still here. I didn't go too far. Oof. Okay. And I need an eraser for my board. I also have that in my pocket. I'm back. Here I am. Okay. Good. All right. Ha-ha. So, pardon me, knife. Okay. So we have a single beveled knife, and I made a video about one of these recently, just like this one. And the knife, when I was working with the student, we already pretty much shaped it up where with a 320 grit stone, we got the, oh, you can't see that, sorry. We got the knife to be a bit more flattened down. So instead of the knife being rough all over and us taking the first layer and realizing, well, hey, wait a minute, what about these little spots we missed? We made sure that all the Sharpie went away and that the scratch pattern looked really quite clean. And let's take a look at that and see if that is truly the case. We want to use evidence-based observation, not hope-based observation. It might not work out as well for us if it's just hope-based. Let me help you get a little closer in here, okay? And I'm going to bring my, I got these little lights at the Walmart on sale one time, and I thought, I'll just show you what the number is and all that stuff. Let me see if we can zoom in real nicely here. Zoom! I guess it's the best we're going to do. But they're these little rechargeable lights, and they have a little LED screen on here, panel, and they have a switch in the back, and they have a USB, what is that? USB micro something right there. But you have a little switch, and they have bright, less bright, and so I'm going to try to use this to see if we can't see the knife a little better here. Let me put it on super bright. There we go. So you can see back here, when we sharpen this little U shape back here is kind of missing a little bit. The scratch pattern's a little rough, but it's not totally out there. And we're shaping this knife. We're going to make sure the whole thing is refinished. And again, look at that kind of little blob in the middle. This happened to another knife I was looking at where even though we're scraping a lot of material off, I wonder if it's just part of the way the steel was formed or something. It's kind of odd. But the back of the knife is much better, but you can see in the middle, there's still some funky material going on where it's not even. So we're going to take it back to the 320 and make sure we get it nice and even. I'm also concerned the shape of the edge of the knife, the primary cutting edge here. It's clear that if we put it on a flat surface, you can see it rocking back and forth. It has a big notch out of the back here, because if I flatten it on the back, the front of the knife angles up. If I put it in the front, it's not just that this front edge is flat and the back edge here is angled. There's like a true deformation in the edge. So to even that out, there's some pretty aggressive tactics we can do, which are pretty scary looking when you see them done. But I'm concerned that I may have to do that because that's pretty aggressively bad, that the edge would be so uneven. So we're going to do this. You may be freaked out when you see what I'm about to do, but we're going to do it anyways because this is what needs to be done to make sure that the edge of this knife is flush. The edge of this knife is even. And then we'll backtrack and make sure the rest of the knife has been sharpened down appropriately. I filled up old El Pumpo over here. Ooh! There we go. So what I'm going to do, prepare yourself, is I'm going to make sure that the knife is flat by sharpening flat directly on the knife. Now, for some of you, you may be saying, what is he doing? How could he? It goes against everything I've thought. But the idea is, if you flatten your knife on a stone, and you flatten this edge on a stone, well, what happens if the primary edge is not flat? It is not even. Well, we need to flatten it. And as kind of kooky as that seems, this is one way to do that. And it is really out, so I'm really going to go at it. Normally I wouldn't do so much. And it's more of the middle of the stone, or the knife. Sorry about your ears there. But already it's looking much better. Now I have to go back and kind of fix this, but it's at least looking less curved. Now it's looking more like there's one side here. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. One side here, one side there. Before, it was really curved. Now we at least have two sides forming. Come at me in the comments on this one. I know this is going to freak some people out. And like I said, I'm really going to have to pay for this with some time to make sure that I'm getting the rest of the knife to fall in line with this. But this is what we need to do to flatten that edge out. I'm still not super satisfied with that, but honestly, I don't want to do that any more than I have to. So I'm just going to take what it's worth and say, I did what I wanted, and I'm not going to take like a work sharp and regrind it, but I will take heavier stones and grind it down. So I did that on a 1500, so it's not too aggressive. I probably could go more, but for now, I'm just going to go to a 320 grit stone, and I'm going to make sure I can get the edge to form on both sides. Now, for some of you saying, well, why is he sharpening this flat side? The reason I'm doing that is I'm regrinding this knife. I'm going to go up to an 8,000 grit stone on both sides, and then I really don't have to sharpen this side anymore because it's been filed down. I'll really only sharpen on this side, hopefully. That's my goal at least. So let's get the old Sharpie going. We're started off with something a little bit tense. For those of you who don't sharpen your knives very often, you won't think anything of it other than the screeching sound. For many oboe players, that's going to be you might have to take some deep breaths and pause the video and think about what I've just done. But go with me on it. It's going to be okay. But we have some Sharpie on the knife now. Got some blue Sharpie, and we're going to try to make sure that the burr, which is definitely not there now, is going to reform. Now, I don't have any water on there. I'm going to put a little more water on there. This is a 320 again. My goal here is now I'm regrinding the flats of the knife to make sure that I can reform the edge of the knife because I have blunted it quite heavily. And that's fine. It was for a purpose. The purpose was to try to get the edge of the knife to be more even and flush. And now I'm going back and I'm taking off enough material to reveal the edge of the knife. If you want to see a diagram of that or have me explain it again, you let me know and I'll do it. I forgot about my Sharpie here, so let's look. Now this is fascinating. Lots of Sharpie left here, lots of Sharpie left there. This to me says the center of the knife is heavier than the outer edges. The sharpening of the knife has taken so much off on the outer edges, but not a lot left here. That could be from putting too much pressure on this side or when going up, digging up into the center of the knife too much. So what I'm going to try to do is really focus in on the middle of the knife and make sure I'm trying to stay as flat and unangled as I can. I'm just maintaining that angle on the knife. I want to make sure that I have an even side. Now, the student I was working with, when they were sharpening this, what they noticed was the scratch pattern on the knife wasn't even. All the Sharpie wasn't coming off. Instead, there was Sharpie coming off on the top and on the bottom, but not in the middle. There were two angles on the knife, a high angle and a low angle. And my goal with this is to regrind it. So just like this scratch pattern right here, you can see how clean the scratch pattern, the scratches are nice and even, very fluid. We want that across this entire surface. But you can see over here, it doesn't look as clean. Over here, that Sharpie is still there. I'm not so worried about the Sharpie in the center. I want to make sure the Sharpie doesn't come off, or does come off on the edge. But like I said, the tip and the back of the knife are worn down here. And we're going to wear this down until it meets the outer edges, hopefully. So if I take more off on the hilt of the knife back here, or the back of the blade, or the tip of the knife, if I take more off in there, I'm just continuing this negative pattern that this knife has, which is not flat. Now, the reason I'm going slowly and not just kind of ripping through here is the angle on this knife. I mean, it's a pretty hefty angle. I've got some kookier knives that are even higher angle. Here, I'll show you one. This is a really... Let's see if I have it here. Well, this is just a big, beefy knife, but some of these get really aggressive. I got some pretty funny examples that I can show you here where you got to be really careful how you're going to knock them in there. In my bag of knives. I'll show that for another... Oh, here it is. This is the one I wanted to show. This knife is super aggressive, and the reason I want to show it... Oop, there we go. This one on the right is the one I wanted to show you because it's even stockier and got a lower angle, but it's so tight that if you push too hard and too fast, you're going to miss the angle and do something to deform the straight edge of it. So we're 12 minutes in. It's going pretty well, but I think this is one of those knives where I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I don't deviate from the straight angle. Now, what I like of what I'm seeing, I want you to see as much as possible here. Let me wipe this off. The water's refracting in the camera. There we go. What I'm seeing is right here, there's almost like a long isosceles triangle. I'm going to draw it in Sharpie to highlight it. This material in here is very clean, and it's starting to push out along this way. We're starting to get this material to go deeper and deeper down until it matches the outer edges, or I'd like to. And so I'm going to keep going with this, and we'll see, can we get this angle to keep going out further and further until it matches down, and this Sharpie and this Sharpie that's down there starts to come off a little bit. I don't know if it will within the next 5 minutes, but I'm going to try my best to see if we can't get it. I'm going to rotate the stone and put a little more water because I don't want to wear down only one spot and have the stone that I've just flattened and the knife that I'm trying to keep flat to go awry. I also like I can feel the knife starting to agree a little bit about its angle. It's not dancing around and shimmying and shaking. It's kind of solidifying where its angle is. going to pick up speed here a little bit, maintaining the pressure. Normally I'd be moving around a little bit more, but like I said, I want to be very particular about this. And this is where using a jig can come in handy, because you don't have to worry about it being as precise in your free hand. But I like to be able to know how to do this and have control over it. And I would say, look at that. You can see it starting to creep down further. I think that's really getting there. I think the work is paying off. The other test is, does the burr go over on the other side? I don't think it's really going to do that no matter how far we go. We got to get to this side too, because we rounded over the edge by going flat. I'm going to do this for another minute or two, so if you want to skip ahead, you can. But I'm going to show you the whole process. I don't want to take anything out of what we're doing. So I'm going to try to get that. I think I want that. You can see the scratch pattern here is dangling off there. And this kind of very clean scratch patterns up here. I'd like this to go at least another ½ inch, or almost like a centimeter maybe, and get a little closer up in there. And I feel like I got it locked in well enough. I can start to increase my speed. Whoa, maybe not that fast. I pulled the knife back and angled it, and the knife did not like it. You can see all the slurry on the knife from the steel coming off and the stone breaking down. So this is interesting. I thought this would go a little faster, but it wasn't until I saw how deformed the edge was that I realized, wow, we're really going to have to regrind the angle of this knife. And look at that. I think it's really starting to make progress here. It's even making progress back here. I'm quite pleased with the progress we're making. You know, we can put this on a work sharp grinding disc and grind it down, and that works. I'll probably get one of those eventually. But in this case, we're being methodical, but we're controlling this. We're taking care of business, but it takes a little bit of time. But we're reinforcing that edge. So what we're looking for is for this to come into line with the scratch pattern. Let's put Sharpie on there again and see how flat we are there. Oh, sorry about that. Ha ha ha. Whoa, we're going wild here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You can really, I mean, gosh, the Sharpie's right there. And it makes sense because, as I've been saying, this outer edges have more still taken off. The center does not. This is from the pattern that was formed when the student was using this knife. And so I'm going to try to put the pattern and regrind it, and put it back into a flat, flush area. And in doing so, then also teach the student a way of sharpening the knife that will allow them to maintain the shape of the knife as they sharpen it and hone it, so that they don't have to regrind. Hopefully, they don't have to regrind it again. Ooh, they don't have to regrind it, or have me regrind it either. Now I'm feeling a little better about the motion here, so I'm gonna move a little faster here and go into speed mode, because the primary angle here, the single bevel side, starting to expand out and is a little more stable. But you can see it expanding out, how the even scratch pattern of the 320, it's slowly expanding out. It's been 20 minutes. I'm breaking a little bit of a sweat here because we're doing some work here. Let me switch this around for a moment, and I may switch over to the other side. And there is a bit of a burr forming. Before I continue this side, let's go to the other side and make sure that this side is going to be ready for the other side as well. Let's make sure that this scratch pattern is there as well. And I'm going to put a full Sharpie on here so you can see for yourself what's actually happening. And I got my big Sharpie today. Hooray! With chisel tip. Look at that. Cool. Neato. Now, what I'm expecting to happen is that marker will all go away perfectly. Well, it didn't. The center of the knife still has more marker. And it's kind of like the opposite of this side. On this side, there's more steel taken off on here. But on the larger side, there's more steel taken off in the center. So there was a different strategy the student was using when they were sharpening both sides. It's the opposite on each side, which is a real challenge when you're trying to sharpen your knife. So they took more off here and more off here. So the knife is all over the place, but we'll get it back in there. So this side is super flat and super wide. So let's go in here and see if we can't take that material off there. There we go. The Sharpie's gone. It's got a pretty similar scratch pattern across. What I'm going to do, since we're regrinding this knife, I was going pretty fast and hard as I was moving the knife. Now I'm going to go a little smoother, a little softer. I want to prepare this knife to get to the next stone, which I have, which is 1500. So by going lighter, this heavier grit will be applied and scratch in a lighter way and therefore seem almost like it's a finer stone. So we're using pressure to alter the way that the grit is functioning on the knife. It's kind of dark. Hard to see. Ugh, looks dirty. Gross. Let's clean it up. There we go. Again, there's that little dip in there. That's kind of funny. I don't know why that's there. There we go. You can see it looks pretty flat. Let's see if there's a burr forming. Plenty of burr here. Not a lot of burr on the other side. We could always use a paper cutting test. That might be entertaining. Let's see if it can actually cut paper. This might be kind of funny. Let me grab a piece of paper here. Well, not quite, huh? Not quite there. It's pretty rough. And it's just going to tear the paper at this point. So let's keep at it. This feels like a long time to me to go on this knife. But the reason I'm doing these videos is not just for entertainment, but to show you precisely what I'm doing to try to get these knives into shape. And I'm going to do a lot of these videos over and over again with all the different challenges I encounter to try to help you see how can we resolve these issues. What do we do to make these knives work, especially if they're not in the best working condition or they've been ground in a way that takes them off of their original position. So now I've gone back to the wedge part of the knife, this side, because I want to see, can I get the edge to form by just going flat on this side. Now it's starting to dry out here. You can kind of see here it looks flat or dry. So I'm going to put a little water on there. And in this case, I'm not so worried about the Sharpie because I can see the scratch pattern with my own eye. I don't need to know what's coming off or what's not coming off. But the next thing is to make sure that that scratch pattern, if I can, get that scratch pattern to go all the way across the knife, and then see if I can feel the burr going over across the entire knife. If I can't, at least I can know where the knife is usable and where it's not. Yeah, that is so fascinating. I mean, it's so apparent what's happening because you can see the different coloration here in the scratch pattern. If I put Sharpie on there, those two spots are going to be blue and this part's going to be gray. And the thing is, the desire I or you may have is to start taking the knife and scraping right on that side. But if you do, you'll be breaking the evenness of the knife. We need this part of the knife to go down another layer until it reaches those sides. Because if you sharpen only this side, you're going to start to create a facet in the knife, like a gem. You're going to have a flat side and a flat side at a different angle. Well, then your knife isn't flat anymore. You've got, you know, a funky knife. And not in a good way. So I'm trying to get this edge of the knife to flatten out, but I'm also trying to put a little pressure towards that front outer edge, realizing that I'm trying to meet those two areas together. Now I'm going to really push down. I may move to the 120 because I know what I want to do, but I want to take a lot of steel off. And it's starting to get there, but let's do a little experiment. Oh my goodness, that's on there really good. There we go. Let's go to the 120 and see if it's going to, how much more it's going to cut. I want to see how harshly this thing can cut through this knife, because I don't want to be here all night. We got 27 minutes and 50 seconds into this video, and we want to get this knife going. So let's just take a quick look here, and you can see, you can almost see the reflection there. It's going so smoothly. We should hear a gravelly sound. It feels gravelly, and this knife should not be as shiny in a few seconds. It should be rough. That's more like it. That's what we should hear on a 120 grit stone. This is rough. Look at that. Way deeper. I think that's great. It's very uniform, but the scratches are way, way deeper. Less shiny, more individual grains. You can see it cutting in there. Let me get it really close in there. It's like a microscope there. And what we're going to see is how much more quickly can we get that to go down. Not by focusing on this, but by making this steel go down so it will spread out. Here we go. Get my workout in for the day. And I like this stone is freshly flattened, and I can feel it. It feels very true. And I'm going to really push down on this thing because I am not kidding around. I don't want to be here all night. I want this thing to work. Whoa, not like that. So I angled the knife and it crunched away. I don't want to do that. And I'm not pushing full force, but I'm pushing pretty close to it. Because if I push any harder, there's a likelihood that my hands will kind of shake and they'll rotate out of position. So, I mean, I'm really digging into this knife. We're getting closer. Much closer. And the back is really, wow. The back of the knife is really almost right there. Look at that. Like 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 millimeters. And then up here, maybe 15 or 16 millimeters here. So we're going to keep going a little bit more. Oh boy. Wow, I can feel the burr. You're going to be able to hear it. That's not me clicking my finger over the burr. That's me touch. You can even see some of the burr material kind of curling over. The burr is there all the way along here. That is fantastic. But up here, not so much. So we would be able to use this much of the knife, well over 2/3. And oddly, the front half of the knife would be almost unusable for a while. But I'm going to see if we can keep it going. I want this thing to work. I want this thing to be really nice. I want my student to have a fresh knife. We're reshaping. We're regrinding this knife. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put some pressure down here, but I don't want to leave out the back of the knife. Even though there's a burr forming, I want to make sure I'm taking even material off the entire thing to get down so that the front edge of the knife is also having material taken off. Whew. Hard work. Ooh. Well, the burr is there. I mean, it's really heavy. I'm going to go on the other side and just knock down that burr for a second. Just because, I mean, that is ridiculously heavy. And like I said, I would normally not do that if I had already finished the knife. But I'm just doing that because I don't want it to curl up and splinter off and make the knife edge jagged. We're really getting there. I'm really curious. So I'm going to put like 4 or 5 more minutes here, and let's see if we can get that edge to come through. We're so close. Let's keep going and see if we can get it. I'm going to switch to the other side, see if it is as freshly rough as the original side was there. Pretty good. And that is the knife flat. I mean, this thing, it is wonderfully rough. Aha! Sorry, I hope I didn't scare you there. We're really getting somewhere. You can see, this is very exciting. You can see the scratch pattern popping up over the top edge there. That is great. Now, I will admit, when I'm doing this, I can hear it, going back and forth, but I'm sacrificing that exact precision to try to get it to happen a little faster. So I think we can get this knife where we want it, which is flat. Now, thankfully, this is not something you do every day or every month or necessarily even every year with the knife, because if you have it in a good working order, you shouldn't have to regrind your knife very often at all, sometimes maybe even if ever, if you have a really, really good system. Ooh. But this knife really needed some help. And so for some of you, you may not have the time or the endurance to sit here for 35 minutes and scrape down on this knife until you can get it to even out. Maybe just buy a new one. And that's why I really like espousing to people to sharpen their knives in ways that keep them healthy for the long run. Whoa, we're right there. You can see it's kind of slightly discolored. The scratch pattern hasn't quite gotten all the way there. And the burr is forming all the way up until right about here. Sure enough, that's where that scratch pattern starts to change, right up in here. We're almost there. Let's keep going. Oh, I'm wiping off the sweat from my brow over here because I'm working here. Now I'm going to be a little more careful. Like I said, before I was going really fast and trying to get that steel off. Now I know we've gotten the steel off. Now I want to make sure I'm really establishing a nice flat angle. I'm really happy that this knife has started to respond the way we expected to. Knives, they should work a certain way. And it can be really reassuring and also make you feel like you're going cuckoo, because you'll do what's supposed to work and it seems like it doesn't. But if you know the scratch patterns, if you know what to look for, and you know how the principles work, it may take time, may take consistency, but eventually it will get there. It's just nice when you have more specialized tools that will make the job happen a little faster. Even though it's taken 36 minutes to get to this point, if we didn't have this 120 grit stone, we wouldn't be able to cut down into this steel as quickly. Now we've gotten to an interesting point where the scratch pattern is starting to come over, but what I wonder, before we were talking about the evenness of the knife, it feels a lot more even. It looks a lot more even. And so I'm going to go a little bit longer. Let's go a minute or two. If you're watching this video going, oh my gosh, this guy just sharpened this knife for 37.5 minutes. He's still not done. No, I'm not done yet, because I'm not going to finish until I can regrind this knife. I'm not going for a half measure on this one. I want it to be right. I want it to be correct. I want it to be just nice. That way my wonderful student will have a knife that not only is working, but completely working. That's the hope, at least here. So let's keep at it. One of the things I'm trying to do is make sure I don't forget about the steel at the back of the knife. This knife is nice because it's poked out. The back of the blade here is kind of up against the edge. Sometimes if you have a bulk of metal there, it can wear down your stone. So I'm just making sure I don't build up excess material there for no reason, while focusing more on the tip of the knife, or the top of it. Oh, we're getting really close. Even I'm getting a little tired of this now. But think of where we came from. We had this whole, what do we say, a centimeter before? And now we have like a tip and like half a heart's length of material to cut off. I think we can go for that. And the burr is so nice all the way up till here now. So we're really close. I'm going to go up on that 320 I have up here and just wipe the burr off. Again, I wouldn't normally do this if we weren't refinishing the knife. But I just want to make sure the burr doesn't crumble away too far. So in essence, I'm trying to shear the burr, but in a way, I'm just kind of sharpening it down as well. Ah, it was so close. If you're wondering, what am I getting all guffawed about? It's that material right up there. You can see it's not shiny in the same way. The scratch pattern, the way the stone is grabbing the knife right up here is not the same. And because it's not the same, the burr isn't forming on this side. When I sharpen on this side, the steel tries to escape like water and curls over. Here, that steel is not able to escape over because it's not flat. And the burr won't form. The burr won't form, you can't have a sharp knife for what we're doing, or a bird knife. We're going to keep going. The burr is going higher. It's almost there. Even though the coloration isn't perfect, I can feel the burr forming up to about right there. We're so close. The stone is completely gray now, of course. It used to be white. Let's see if we can get some of that material to come off so we can have a nice clean cutting edge again. Well, I don't want to admit defeat on that front edge, but considering how long it's going to take us to get that edge, which has been nicked up, to get into shape, I don't know if it's worth another 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm going to give myself 2 more minutes. If I can't get it, we'll move on, because now we're only looking at, 4 millimeters of knife not coming through, and that seems a lot more feasible. So let's go 2 more minutes. You'll notice I'm not just going flat in one direction. This is not all, I'd like it to be an exact science, but sometimes if you guff or you kick or something goes awry, you can bring it back and keep it flat. Sometimes you want to take a little bit more on one side or a little less on the other, and that's okay. It's going to happen. In the end, we want to bring it into that flat zone. But as we get along to the final product, it's not always going to be just right. And that's okay. We'll get there in the end. One more minute. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Maybe maybe next week I can go at it again, but now, I mean, what progress we've made. Think of where we were before. We were talking about almost 1/3 of the knife not really having a burr on it. And now this entire area, all the way up to the last 4 or 5 millimeters, has a very even scratch pattern. That is gorgeous. Did we finish the entire knife? No. But for now, if we're going to take this steel down to reach this point, it's a real bear. And so I'm pleased that we have the burr forming on this side. So for now, what I'm going to do is we didn't win the war, but I'll say we won the battle at least. And so we'll take what we can get in that regard. I'm going to clean this stone off a little bit. You can see how much steel we're taking off there. I mean, we really went at this thing. This may be an advertisement for why you get like a work sharp or a razor edge, because using the Sharpens stones and burrs like this, I mean, sometimes you really got to put some effort into it. And if you have a motorized device like a work sharp or something that can maintain the angles, that can be very helpful. But I want everybody to at least understand the principles and fundamentals with freehand sharpening. So now we're going to proceed as normal. And it should go pretty quickly. Hopefully within about 6 or 7 minutes, we'll be pretty much done with this knife because we've shaped it. The back edge, even, simple scratch pattern. The wedge side, the single bevel, very clean. Just this front edge is a little off. I'm not going to Sharpie it because really you'll be able to see with the scratch patterns what's happening and not have to worry about just the overtness of a Sharpie. So first I'm going to go in with this back side here. Which really, we didn't sharpen this side on the 120 very much, but I just want to make sure we have the stone shaped up, really smooth, and ready for the next grit. And so I'll make sure I have a nice light motion on these final strokes. Show you what we have. Looks a little dull, but that's okay. That's the whole point of this. And I can feel the burr going the way it should. I took off steel on this side. The steel is escaping and trying to curl up. Ooh, like that. And now I'm going to do that on the other side as well. And we should get the same result. Now, it's wild that that burr is forming on a 320 grit stone. 320 is rough. On a double hollow ground knife, the burr very seldom forms so overtly because it's crumbling off already. So it's pretty cool on this single bevel knife to be able to feel the burr so overtly forming. Really neat. And even though I just flatten these stones, I can start to see the wear pattern I'm putting in on the, I can feel it kind of dipping around a little bit here and there. Now, the reason I'm going to do this one a little longer is because I was on that 120 grit stone for a while with this thing. So I want to make sure I've really gotten it all evenly done. Otherwise, there's going to be more work on the 1500 grit stone that I need to do. And already I can feel the stone acting a little smoother and softer. Some dirty rag. Ooh, that looks nice. Well, that certainly looks a lot different than when we started. Let me get a fresh piece of paper towel here. What a difference. Let me get this. We're almost at a mirror polish. You can start to see the camera. You can still see over here, there's that little notch. That's a reminder that we didn't finish the job yet, but I can feel the burr forming everywhere else quite nicely, except right up there. Don't mention that. But so I think I'm gonna move up to the next grit I'm going to do this one a little bit more. I see right up here, up on this edge, it doesn't quite reach down like it does over here. So I'm going to go on here and make sure that I'm going very slow, very even. I imagine in the comments somebody say, when he's going fast, he's rocking all over the place. Yeah, I know. But we want to go, we don't want to be here forever. It's like when you're making a reed, you can take a year to make one reed, but you're going to miss a lot of concerts along the way. So we're going to try to balance speed and consistency and try to have a happy medium. The fact that the burr is forming so easily here, I'm just going to move to the next stone because that's really good. I think I'll just do one knife in this video. I was going to go for a 2-for-1, but woo-hoo-hoo-hoo, I think 50 minutes on one knife and not even done, that's a lot of time. So we're going to go for a 1-for-1 on this one. I'll make another video soon with knife splashed me with the other one. Let's see what happens here with this stone. This is the 1500. And now I'm not going to do it all the way. I want to show you how, even though we're taking material off, it's not all coming off evenly all at once. I'm going to put a little Sharpie on here and try to show that. How there's going to be high and low spots here and there, I think. I expect that. Let's see. And obviously there's water on the stone and the Sharpie is wet, so it'll come off a little bit. So you can see I'm putting a little more pressure on the top of the knife and back here. That Sharpie is still kind of there. So let's get it off. But it shows that, I mean, the knife is pretty flat, and that's great. And I've got a little bit of dryness coming up here and probably a wear pattern in the stone, so I'm going to flip it around again. Now, one of the things that can be stated about a single beveled knife, for those who use double hollow grounds, they may look at this and say, well, gosh, why am I sharpening all of that material? You know, I'm flattening the back of that blade, the front of the blade, the side. The whole point of this knife is to maintain a simple, flush, even angle. So the idea is you just put the knife down and sharpen, and the burr forms, and you're happy days. So even though you're taking more of that material off to accomplish our goal of getting the edge of the knife there, the idea is that our hope, the idea is that the front of the edge will be more even because of that broad, flat area that we're sharpening down. We can see that it's even, we can feel that it's even, and so it helps encourage an even motion on the knife. We're not going to get a mirror yet. When we get to the 5,000, it'll be there. But I feel the burr forming on the other side again. This is pretty good. So let's keep going. I'm going to go to the other side. And put a little water on there. I'm going to just experiment with some short strokes here so I don't have to worry about my hands twisting as I reach further down the stone. Now you saw the stone kind of jiggle on there. Sometimes I find if the knife is super flat, and maybe if I kick the angle up a little bit, the knife will start like skating because it's so flat that it's not going to facet onto a different angle. It's just going to, kind of vibrate like an instrument would. It's going to have a compression and rarefaction, which is kind of cool. Now, what's funny is what we were working on before is kind of coming back a little bit. You can see that familiar swoop in there. And you can see the mirror polish up there, but down here, no mirror polish. So I'm going to go in here and we kind of, oh boy, we got to kind of do the same thing we were doing before and make sure we can polish down that same area that was causing us problems before, or else it will just rear its ugly head again. We're getting there. Sounds like a familiar saying now. Just a little bit more. We'll get there. But the burr is forming beautifully. Very nice. And that mirror finish already at the 1500 is coming through, which is fantastic. And again, this is not the norm. This is not something we're going to do all the time. And that's partially why I want to show this on videos to show when we're regrinding a knife, you really got to check through the entire procedure to make sure that you're not missing any steps along the way. You can't just skip ahead. You got to make sure every step is, oh boy, that's, ooh, gross. Okay, we'll leave that over there. Don't mind that. Closer. You can see now, just like we had at the end, it's going over there. And there's our friend, the tip of the knife, being not so nice to us. Let's try to put a little bit more focus on that edge and then come back. I'd like this to be under an hour video, but clearly we're just about to start hitting the hour mark, and we haven't hit the 5,000 or the 8,000. So I think we'll shoot for maybe an hour and 5 or an hour and 10 on this. But that's the reality of what we're doing here. And I'm not going to do any speed ups or anything like that. I'll put some YouTube will do some minute markers on there, so it'll be easier to kind of benchmark what's going on. I'm going to move forward and see what happens with this. I think it's going to be okay, but I will point out that is still there, that front edge. But we can't save the world all at once, so we'll get there eventually. 5,000 grit. A little water on it. And I'm going to wipe off the knife pretty well. Try to make sure we don't have any remaining grit from the last stone. Oh. It's kind of bouncing. I try to be very flat. So we went from a 1,500 to a 5,000. Let's take a look at it. We're going to get a mirror polish on this one. It's very interesting. You can start to see the back of the blade here is really starting to get that mirror, and we're going to start to see it creep out to the edge of the knife as well, which is what we're really looking for, because we want that mirror on the front edge, not necessarily just on the back. So we're meeting up to that point. If we don't get there, we need to go back to a knife. And I may make a separate video, part 2, the return of the knife. There's our mirror. There's my camera lens. Let's see if we can see. Hello. Hi. That's me waving. So at least it's shiny. We got that going for us. Does it cut? I don't know. It should. That's the whole point of what we're doing. And it's got a very nice burr already. Like, it's ridiculous. We're going to do a little bit more just to make sure that we get all the way to the very tip of the edge. Now, you may say, if you're looking at that, well, gosh, it looks like to the tip of the edge. I'll get the microscope out in one of these videos, and we'll take a look and see what it is actually going to the edge. It's very apparent when it is, but I suspect we're not getting all the way there. We're close, but I want to make sure we bulk up the burr a little bit more before we proceed. I'm going to turn this around. But at least well over 3/4 of this knife are usable and are going to be really solid and easy to maintain with a strop or with a nice stone. And it'll be so much more workable. And then as the knife is sharpened down over time, the knife will, with, maybe in 3, 6 months, a year, if it's sharpened correctly, it will return that tip to its rightful place in the left hand of the knife. Or the right hand, I don't know. But it'll be there. It's just the prodigal son will return to the knife. We just got to give it some time to figure itself out. There we go. No burr. Burr. Burr, 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 burr. Burr, 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 burr. No burr. Burr. Ugh. That part of the knife, you can see that pesky scratch pattern. Ugh, a rumph. Oh, well. Now let's take a look at this side of the knife and polish that up. We'll go to the 8,000 and we'll be done. Finally, we can go home. And then come back and do it all again tomorrow. So let's go to the flat side of the knife. Or the back, I guess you could say. Let's take a look at what's happening while we're doing this. We haven't done a ton. But you can, oh, look at that. See, this part, shiny, center part, not. Just like before. So what we saw in the heavy stones is coming through even on the fine stones. So that same wear pattern is revealing itself through here. Now, even though I'm only taking a little bit off, I can still put some good pressure to try to maximize the amount that's coming off at this grit. And then as it gets closer to the finished product, I'll soften up so we can allow the grit to have a lighter motion. Let me get a little more water on there. Ooh, look at that design. Cool. Make a t-shirt out of that. Ooh. And this is why we need to do our job correctly in the previous stones, because it takes a while to wear down that center pattern. And like that last knife I did of this similar type, it's got that kind of divot in the center. And so we got to polish around it to get to that point. Otherwise, the center of the knife won't have a clean burr when it's formed. Sometimes, to get the wearing of my stones to be a little more even, I will use the side of the stone because it's easy to forget that part of the stone. So sometimes I'll use the side of the stone too. Don't want it to feel excluded. Oh, sorry, I was looking over here, but I was fascinated by this knife because we almost have like a triangle now in here. You can see, even without the Sharpie, and that's just not dirt. That's the scratch pattern. Now, the cool thing is, thankfully, the mirror is coming through at the tip. So the burr is forming all the way across, so I don't know if we have to worry too much about that spot because it's not affecting the tip of the knife. So that's good. And the burr is forming where it should. So let's put it forward again, and then let's switch to 8,000 and see what we get. I'll be done for the night. Okay. Nice. Very nice. Okay. To the 8,000 grit. Oh, there's sweat in my eyebrows because it's so. I'm pushing this knife so dang hard. Oof. So let's take a look before we go on the 8,000. It's pretty mirrory. You can see the camera lenses there. And that mirror is going to pop even more. Oh, here's my hand. How many fingers am I holding up? 7? I can't tell. That's what the 8,000 grit is for. We can use more mirror. So I'm going to go on this relief here first, and then we're going to see how shiny it gets and how even we can get it across. So going from 5,000 to 8,000 grit. And I'm not going to use the Sharpie this time because, like I said before, the scratch pattern is so apparent, I think. Let me know if you can't see the scratch pattern. Or if there's a time marking, if something doesn't make sense or if it's unclear. Put a time marker and say, hey, that didn't make any sense. Explain that. I will explain it. Or if you see something I did wrong, or you say, how dare you rock your knife that fast, let me know. I'll try to make a thoughtful response and either agree or give a perspective on it. But let's see how we're doing. And again, just like before, shinier over here, shinier over there, darker in the middle. And look at that mirror. Look at how clear it is and how foggy it is right over here. So let's keep going. Whoa! Got away from me. It's kind of digging in and grabbing down. It's like sucking into the stone. The water is dissipating away and it's kind of grabbing down, and I'm losing the knife as I go. So I have to be a little more careful on this stone. I'm going to put a little more pressure on my left hand, my right hand, so that the knife doesn't lose my left hand. Well, mirror, mirror, dull, a big B, I guess, a backwards B, and mirror, mirror, mirror. You can see where is that? That's my light up in the ceiling. So this is not a halide, what is that? It's like an LED lamp, but it's very long. And so you can see that lamp here, and you can see it's clear, and then it's kind of cloudy, and then it's clear again. So we're using that as a reference kind of to see how mirror-like or how smooth the finish is. But I will say the burr is grabbing pretty nicely across, so I'm not going to do too much more of that, but I'm going to go in here and go very lightly and see if I can't just give it a nice light polish before moving on. I don't like the center of the knife still being a little rough, but considering the tip of the knife is what we're most worried about, and it is cleared out pretty well, I think we're going to be fine. And next is the most important part, which is the front of the knife, the wedge part that angles out, and that's the scraping burr on this right-handed knife. And honestly, the center of the knife, the burr isn't really doesn't feel any different compared to the other side. So I'm gonna go with it for now. If the knife were shorter and we were using this steel here, oh my gosh, look how clearly you can see my phone. That's amazing. But here, no more phone. You can't see it. It's in camouflage, so you can see what an amazing impact has the fineness of our sharpening has on that. Whoa, that's cool. Okay, so now we're going to use this side, and we're going to finish up that edge. And we're going to put that light burr going forward and mirror it, polish it off, and we'll be done. In only a few hour and 20 minutes, you too can resharpen your knife. Ooh. But it's better than 3 hours or better than not working. I think that's really what we're looking at here. It's an hour, but it's only an hour by comparison to it not working or it being off. And so if you can invest that time and the skill and the technique, well, then you don't really have to do this again. It's done. This is only something you have to do when things go awry and you need to re-establish what everything is supposed to do. No, what's it doing? I gotta be careful. It's kind of skating around. Pretty mirrory. And our old friend, the tip of the knife here, is still giving us a little trouble. And there's just a little water on that side. There we go. That looks pretty nice. And the burr is doing very nicely. That burr, that easy formation, is why we did all this work. It's why when you're scraping, I'll talk more about knife sharpening in another video and the foundation and fundamentals that I'd like you to think about to make the process easier and more logical. But in this case, because we've gotten both sides flat, and you remember, beginning of this video, I started on a pretty wild idea. I took the knife and put it down flat on the stone. Remember that back an hour and 10 minutes ago? Ooh, the burr is there. The burr is forming. So even if you saw that and went, how he ruined the knife. Well, the burr is there, and I did it for a specific purpose, and that was to even out the edge of the knife and try to make sure that it's flat, just like these flat angles here. So I've removed enough steel to expose the steel at the tip of the edge of the knife, and the burr is forming as expected, as we want. And so the fundamentals of knife sharpening still are sound. They're still working. We haven't discovered anything new as of yet with this. Now, I could probably go for another 20 minutes on this stone just to really impress myself, I guess. But for now, there's a really nice burr forming. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shear the burr by drawing across the stone, and that should take the burr and give it a little bit of a haircut so that it kind of tightens up. Because if it's dangling around and I go in here, it'll kind of compress it a little bit. And then I'm going to reform that burr again and give it a little bit of length. Just like an ocean wave curling over, the more that we sharpen on this side, the more the ocean wave will curl over and create a longer burr. But now, since we sheared the burr should be more even flush across. So it'd kind of be like this rather than just all these dangly bits. Very nice. I got a little reed here. Just going to scrape up and down. I'm not doing any refined scraping. It's kind of hard to see with reed here, but we can make verms. kind of out of focus. Let's see. I'll get some different cameras for reed making. Look at that mirror. What am I looking at? Oh, it's the top of my desk. Ah, look at that. That's cool. Well, I guess at least I've made a nice mirror. Now, this is not going to scrape at all. This is gross. But here, stuff is coming off. Sorry, it's so blurry. Why are you focusing on that? Focus on this. But there's definitely a burr there. And the burr is now easily manipulated. So I'm going to pull out one of my strops here. This is a strop that I like, and Mr. Lucarelli used to use in his studio, and so I have it out here. We'll use this one, and it has some jeweler's rouge, the red rouge on this one, and this one's natural leather. And so I'm just going to wipe the knife off with a nice clean paper towel with a little water on it, because I do not want that grit on my nice leather strop. That would really not be good. So let's use, let's start with the jeweler's rouge side. And what I'm going to do is just put it down flat. I'm going to get a little bit more in the frame so you can see this. No angle, just putting it flat. Oh yeah, very nice. Ugh, I got gross grit on my strop. Ick. Just polishing off the last little bit here. It's got a really fine, excuse me. Again, this is not like some pro reed making setup. I just want to show that as I scrape the reed, stuff comes off. So this can be personalized for each student and each person so that the burr edge does what you want. But from where we were, obviously it's not perfect right in the center there. We got our B there. And this side, quite nice, but not perfect. We have this edge right here, but if you're watching this video for an hour and 18 minutes, you'll know how long it took to get to that point, and that it may not have been worth it to keep going. It may have taken another 20, 30, 40 minutes, and because we'd have to take down all of that stuff. That's the point where you get a work sharp out and you just grind it down. But I'd say this is a success. I'll personalize the burr a little bit more. And work with the person who owns this knife to help them be in control of it. But we have a burr. The shape is there. It's been sharpened, and we've honed the edge so that we have a very nice burr, and we'll personalize that for the student. Thank you for hanging around. All our stones are dirty now. Everything's muxed up. But we have this knife in a much, much better place, and it will last for many, many months and hopefully many, many years of great usage. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching Oboe Speak. I'm Dr. David Cyzak. Please subscribe. Leave a comment if you'd like me to make a video on something, or you have a suggestion, or you have a question about anything I've done. Otherwise, I wish you a wonderful morning, evening, or, morning, afternoon, or evening. And hopefully I'll see you again in the next video. See you later. Bye-bye.